Greetings, everyone. It is March of 2022, and that is, I think, about 8 years exactly since I bought this air compressor, and also probably about March of 2014. It might have been a little later, it might have been April or May, but it has been approximately 8 years since I got this thing. Now, I apologize if the audio quality of this voiceover is not very good. I tried to use my regular microphone, but yeah, it's computers. Sometimes they just don't work right for no reason. But you know what does work right? This air compressor. I still own this thing. It's been about 8 years. It works bloody brilliant, and I'm very, very happy with this thing. Now, I'll just tell you this, and I'll play the original video from 2014. I'll share more of my thoughts at the end of the video. But, you know, it just works, okay? You know, it's solidly built. Like I said, I've been using mine for 8 years. If you're thinking about getting one of these, if you think it'll fulfill your needs, I highly recommend this tool. Like I said, 8 years of putting the hours on mine, you know, fire it up right now. I mean, look, if you look at the picture, there's actually pressure in it, and I haven't even used this thing in a couple weeks. I just took this picture like 10 minutes ago. So yeah, these things are awesome. Here's the initial, just from 2014, and I'll give you more of my thoughts at the end.
Good afternoon, YouTube. I'm Chucky2009, and a couple things here. First and foremost, I got a new air compressor. Second, I'm still getting the shop set up, so it's a little bit of a mess, so please excuse that. This is a MAC5200 from Makita, and I purchased this unit a couple days ago for full retail at the local Home Depot. Now, as some of you know, I recently struck out on my own and moved 21 hours away from home, and when I did that, I ended up leaving my old air compressor back in Ohio simply because, well, it's seen better days and it just really wasn't worth moving. So I'm really excited to get this opened up and try it out. Now, I do have a Makita angle grinder, and I've always been very happy with it. It served me well in the a little over 2 solid years that I've been beating the daylights out of it. But that being said, I've never used a Makita air compressor before. I didn't even know they made air compressors, and the guy at Home Depot said that it was some kind of a new product that they just recently started selling. Alright, now my first impressions of this unit are that I'm very, very pleased with its high level of fit and finish. These things here appear to be cast iron. They appear to be very nicely casted and ground to fit, and they turn smoothly. Also, when you look at the welds, I mean, we all know the production welds on a lot of things really aren't that great, but these look really nice. There's the air tank. I guess those should pretty much always be good, but you know, it's the little stuff like these hangers, which are presumably for an air hose, and the fact that this tubing doesn't have a flimsy feel to it whatsoever. You also have this cool little storage area up on top, you know, just if you want to put your quick connects or air nozzles or whatever in there. And I guess I'm just going to go ahead and open up the drain on this tank, and I'll just pop a quick connect thing in here, and we'll just let it run. Alright, let's see what happens. Guess there's really no reason to drain that. So, I have let this thing run for 30 solid minutes. The manual recommended 20, but you know, a little bit of extra probably never hurt anything. Plasma cutting with this. As soon as I put in some earplugs, we're going to get to it. Alright YouTube, so I've been doing some plasma cutting, and this Makita compressor seems to be holding up really well. So yeah, pretty much what I went ahead and did is I made a 12-inch cut across the length of this piece of channel. Then I did the sides here, which are quite a bit thicker. And then I came over here and sliced sort of my channel's initials just into this piece of scrap metal for the heck of it. And I was doing this pretty much as quick as I could move the torch around, and the air compressor kept up. Needless to say, it does run pretty much constantly. You know, this tank is only, what is this thing, 5.2 gallons. That's a microscopic tank, but it's definitely putting out the air that the plasma cutter needs.
So there you can see it's all nice and new and shiny, and here it is after almost a decade in the clown world. It has fared about the same as the rest of us, in my opinion. Alright, so here's the deal. Mine's been basically flawless. The only problem I've ever had with it, you can actually see in this picture, that is not the original pressure switch that came on this thing. So the deal with that is I went to use it one day and it wouldn't start, and I concluded it was the pressure switch. So I did what I shouldn't have done and just immediately went out and bought another one and then started hacking up the machine to make it fit properly. And when I took apart the old pressure switch, there were like some loose parts in there, so I'm pretty sure there wasn't actually anything wrong with it. I think just something internally came loose. I probably could have just fit it all back together and been fine, but you know, like I said, I bought this thing. I shouldn't have dicked with it. You know, you should always look at things before you just try to replace them. So, you know, it might have needed a pressure switch. I'll just put it that way. But for 8 years, that is excellent. All right, now here's what I've done with this thing. Originally, at my old shop in Austin, as you saw there, this was my only air compressor. All right, so I use this to run the plasma cutter, and it would do it. The main thing people complain about with air compressors of this sort is they're like, it's so small, I can't run this all day. Look, guy, it's 5.2 gallons. What do you want? All right, so it'll run the air compressor for like 30 to maybe 40 seconds, if I had to guess, just depending upon how you have it set up and what you're doing. And so for a lot of general fabrication stuff, that's perfectly acceptable, all right? You know, you got some little odds and ends pieces you got to cut up. All right, you go through and you cut those, but you're not cutting constantly. So yeah, the air compressor sits there and runs pretty much nonstop, okay? But it'll do it. It does it just fine. Obviously, if you got like a CNC table or something, that's not going to be good. That's going to require much more air. That will make the plasma cutter shut off. In fact, ultimately, the only reason why I upgraded from this to a larger 60-gallon compressor I bought several years after that video you guys just watched was filmed is because I bought a CNC plasma table. It won't keep up with applications like that. Obviously, it's not good for carbon arc gouging, but it will run a plasma cutter, you know, if you use half a couple brain cells and, you know, think about what you're doing. In fact, true story, I used to take this with me commercial welding. Nowadays, I have a gas-powered air compressor with a Honda motor on it, and that puts out all the air that I need, praise God. But back in the day, I did not have that. So back in the day, I would take this thing to job sites and stuff with me. It rode in the passenger seat of my old F-250. Praise God that I never got in a wreck, because this thing probably would have gone flying and killed me. But, you know, I'd take it out of the truck, I'd plug it into my my engine-driven welder and run it off of that, and I'd also run the plasma cutter off of that. And you know what? It wasn't ideal, but it did get it done. And then after that, this machine kind of went on backup duty. Now, one thing it's really good for is inflating tires and such, because it actually rolls around decently on those little wheels. And I remember I used to have a couple machines with truck tires on them that took like 105 PSI, I think. And, you know, obviously it would do that real easily. It was nice because I could roll it out in the yard, run it on a extension cord. It's 110 volt, obviously. It would make more, it would do more, you know, stuff and things. But if it was 220, guys, I'm not an engineer, all right? But 110 volt is good for, it's good for portability. Is it good for mechanics work? Yeah, I think it's real good for that. I mean, obviously with a small air compressor, if you're sitting there romping on things with an impact wrench, you will run out of air, okay? But if you're just doing some work on your truck in your driveway, you know, you use a little vroom vroom here and there, you know, and then you let it sit for a couple minutes, it's fine for that kind of thing. You know, it's basically fine for anything that you don't need air constantly for. You know, use the tool a little bit, let it sit there and rest and charge up, it's fine. Now, this is just generic information about air compressors about the size that hopefully you guys know by now. And so about this one specifically, the build quality on it is phenomenal. It has held up to a lot of abuse. Now, like I said, I've put the hours on this thing. It did sit for about 3 years when I was, after I got the engine-driven compressor on my truck and I had the bigger one at the shop. It did sit a lot, but the remaining use we've gotten out of it over the other 5 years has really, really added up. So, yeah, it served me really well. I think the build quality is great. There was a time, I don't know if I can find the video at least easily right now, but there was actually a time when we pulled it out of storage and been in storage for like a year or two, and it was still holding pressure somehow, and that really, really impressed me. Now, I will say I've tried to keep up on the maintenance with this thing using DeWalt brand synthetic compressor oil. Yeah, and so I think that's probably helped a lot. I haven't been perfect about it, though. It probably should have gotten a couple more changes than what it did. But here's the thing, okay? It's built very well. It has lasted 8 years and still going. I think, to be fair, it is a little slower now charging up, but you just have to expect that kind of thing, okay? Right now, I could go out there and use it. Look, there's even pressure in it. You can see in the pictures. And it's ready to rock and roll. It's given me 8 years of good service. If it died immediately, I would not be angry at all. I've got my money's worth out of this thing. Makita, of all companies, that especially in 2014, I would not have expected to put together a decent air compressor. They really, really, really did a good job on this thing. And yeah, I'm very happy with it. I haven't had any actual problems with it, to speak of, like we discussed. It just friggin' works. Now, I will say one thing I discovered back around 2016 or so. I knew a guy with some rental properties, and there were these hillbilly tweaker crazy people types who lived at one, and they left a bunch of metal junk, and the guy knew I was involved in metalworking. He's like, hey, you want all this stuff for scrap metal? You can have anything you can carry out of here. So I went over there, and one thing I found was about, that thing's probably close to 40 gallons, like a 35 or 40 gallon air compressor tank, like just the tank. I guess something went wrong with the pump or whatever. And so I used that as a reserve tank with this unit, and that helps tremendously. That increases runtime because now instead of just the 5.2 gallon or whatever it is tank on this thing, I have like 41 gallons or something of compressed air. And it helps the compressor a lot because it's fewer starts and stops. And somebody told me years ago that's what actually wears them out. It's like if you get your vehicle cruising on the highway at 60 miles an hour, those are pretty easy miles. It's like cold starting it when it's negative 20 and then romping on the throttle or something. That is what engines don't like. So if you do end up with one of these and you're worried about using it in a shop type setting, you're worried you're going to run out of air, my advice is see if you can find a serviceable, no rusty death trap that's going to blow up half of your building and kill you. You don't want to take chances on this, all right? But if you can find a serviceable used tank like that somewhere, that'll drastically improve the performance when you're using it at home in your garage or whatever. And then if you have to, so like the way I plumbed mine in is actually to that brass colored quick connect. That's the other thing. I did change out one or maybe both of those little air hose quick connects. They like started leaking and stuff, but that's not a big deal. I ran my reserve tank into that second son of a gun right there. And so if I needed to take the air compressor somewhere else, I needed it to be portable, all I do is unhook that and, and then it's ready to just wheel out. So that worked pretty slick, especially being basically free. And, this thing, I can't say it's better than other air compressors because I'm not an air compressor engineer or whatever, but I can say mine's been basically flawless within reason. I got no regrets. I've gotten so many hundreds of hours of use out of this thing. It is rock solid. I highly recommend these compressors. If you pick one up, I think you'll be very happy with it. And like I said, I think it was in the original video, I'm not affiliated with Makita. I bought this compressor full price, and actually there's a story prior to that. I bought another compressor from another brand from a different store, and it was like defective right out of the gun. It was something inside it was like knocking away as soon as I fired it up, and that store didn't want to take it back, and it was this whole big thing. And eventually they gave me my money back, and so, and so I went and bought this one, and it was flawless right out of the box. Okay, now the only other thing I'll say about these, make a mental note. They do have a thermal overload. All right, I managed to hit that in the middle of winter somehow. I don't know. All right, look. Anyway, I thought the compressor was broken. I thought it needed I thought I blew a capacitor and I needed to change that out. But I found out that it's got a thermal overload, but it's really hidden down in there. I wouldn't have known about this unless I researched it on the internet. I had to like reach in there with a screwdriver or something just to poke it, and it's been fine ever since then. So like I said, I tripped that during about the coldest temperatures we have. I don't even have a theory, but that's I've only had to mess with it once. So just as a mental note, if you ever run one of these and it seems dead, or you find one at a yard sale and it seems dead, there's a good chance it's just that thermal overload. It's just a button, you just push it and it resets. So anyway, very happy with this compressor. Of all companies, like I said, Makita, who's really known for like smaller handheld tools, at least to me, they really did a great job on this thing. Very happy with it. I highly recommend these things. Thanks for watching this 8-year review. And yeah, if you guys click on the Amazon link, I don't know if they even still sell these things. I checked a while ago and they did, but that was months ago now. If you click on the Amazon link and you buy one of these, the channel earns a small commission, which helps make non-sponsored content possible. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more. Have a nice day.